It all began in a little café in Paris, just after World War I. The three Goodfellow brothers, Jim, Bert, and Jack, were catching up over coffee and war stories. They talked about the things that mattered to them: their country, their families, their love for building, and the future. Now that the war was over, what should they do next? It didn't take long for them to agree. Let's start a construction company, but one that's built on the values we were raised with, where it's not just about the quality of work, but about people. So they went back home and put their GI bills to work. After a variety of degrees and some on-the-job training, in 1921, Goodfellow Brothers Construction was born. Driven by their passion to spend time outdoors and love of the Pacific Northwest, they chose to set up their operation in the middle of Washington State, in Wenatchee. Almost instantly, they found themselves in the middle of an unprecedented expansion of Washington State's infrastructure. From the very beginning, the Goodfellow Brothers' value drove everything they did as a company. They weren't just doing a job. They were building their country. Roads so farmers could take their product to market, irrigation for watering crops, and dams so people could have power. And more than anything, people always came first. It didn't matter if you were an employee, client, or inspector. Great relationships were the number one priority. It didn't take long for Goodfellow Brothers to become the contractor of choice. They had the best equipment, the best cooks in the camps, and they treated you like family. They always made sure that employees received the training they needed to succeed on the job and in life. Jim Goodfellow was even known to stick around at night and tutor immigrant workers in English, who would go home and teach their children. All this resulted in attracting the best team of employees in the region. Clients took notice, and the jobs kept coming. By the end of the decade, the hydroelectric revolution was well on its way, and the Goodfellow brothers were there at the ground level. In 1933, they landed their biggest contract yet, the excavation of the first 2 million yards of material on the Grand Coulee Dam. The dam was widely considered the key to the development of power on the Columbia River, and it would become the greatest source of hydroelectric energy in the United States. Dam after dam, highway after highway, as the infrastructure of Washington State grew, communities thrived. And their vision, back at that little cafe in Paris, to be a construction company about people, had become a reality. In 1965, Jim Goodfellow Jr. became president and led the second generation into new areas of the Pacific Northwest, including Idaho, Colorado, Montana, Oregon, and Alaska. But by the early 70s, the nation was on the cusp of a recession that would bring gas rations along with unemployment lines. Fortunately for Goodfellow Brothers, a new opportunity lay just across the ocean. The same passion for building communities that had driven Goodfellow Brothers since the very beginning had reached the Hawaiian Islands. In 1972, they were awarded the contract for the Kihei sewer treatment plant on Maui. Shortly after, they were approached with a simple question: do you build golf courses? The answer came quickly: yes, we do. Goodfellow Brothers had the privilege of building some of Hawaii's most celebrated courses, and with each new contract came several more. Soon, they were doing site work for subdivisions and hotels throughout the state. In 1976, Goodfellow Brothers began to diversify by expanding their rock crushing operations, drilling and blasting operations, and purchasing concrete and asphalt paving companies. They were prepared to tackle a wider variety of projects. Then, in 1985, Goodfellow Brothers was contracted by the Hemeter Development Company to do the site work for what would become the world's largest hotel at the time, the Hyatt Waikoloa. Like the Grand Coulee long ago, this project put them on an entirely different map. Not only could Goodfellow Brothers handle jobs of this magnitude, they could do them extremely well. 21 years later, in 2006, they took another major step forward when they were given the largest paving contract ever awarded in the Hawaiian Islands by the Federal Highway Administration, the Saddle Road on the Big Island. It was about this time that another big question came up: do you build solar and wind farms? And of course the answer was absolutely. And just like Goodfellow's commitment to hydropower long ago, they continued to help communities implement new forms of renewable energy. And by 2012, Goodfellow Brothers was in position to once again take things to the next level. Top Grade Construction, a family-owned company that shares the same values as Goodfellow Brothers, was looking for a buyer. This acquisition would allow them to break completely into the California market and lead to new opportunities, including the site work contract for the Levi Stadium, the new home of the San Francisco 49ers. It's been nearly a century since the three Goodfellow brothers dreamed of a construction company built on the values they grew up with. Today, a fourth generation continues to lead with these same values, putting people first, respecting the land, and building communities.
Through all the generations of Goodfellow Brothers, it's come down to good, solid relationships.
If my grandfather were alive today and his brothers were alive today, they would be extremely proud of what this company has done. They would be very proud to be able to walk around to our projects, look at our men and women, watch them working safely, watching each of them doing it right, putting the quality into the product. To be able to go talk to the owners that we work for today, I think they would be very gratified to see that we've built great relationships just as they dreamed of, 90 years ago.
When I think about our values, when I think about my great-grandfather and the company that he built, and to see how far we've come today, yet we're still holding true to the core values of our company, our clients, our employees, and the communities in which we live and work. Something that's pretty special and something that I take very seriously.